All right. Uh, Good morning, everybody. It is actually right on the dot, 11:59. And now it's noon on a Wednesday here, a very rainy day here in the Bronx. This is actually an addendum to the other video that I created, the four-part New York City corruption, my experiences after I was assaulted, um, my experiences with the corrupt police, FBI, director of buildings. I went over the way my uh, landlady tried to charge me $3,000 in rent illegally, the way she tried to charge me $1,600 in utilities illegally, and how she tried to use even HPD housing department lawyers in an abusive power to illegally evict me as well. And this is an addendum because there are other things that I didn't mention, but as time passed, and especially as um, I saw certain comments, it became clear to me that I needed to include certain other pieces of information. So, the first thing, and I'm gonna share the screenshots later. It's just I'm really exhausted about these things, and I'm gonna give my spiel on it, and I'm gonna attach the documents in a bit, and I'll narrate over them also. But it's also stressing. It's stressing. It's a very stressful type of situation. To a point where it's like when you go over these documents again, and you have to read over them again, and you have to go to the details of them again. You basically are reliving that type of experience, and it's overwhelming in the first place, but then you have to like go into these things. It's just taxing, psychologically, emotionally, all of that stuff. So the first thing I want to point out is actually it's going to be like two major things. Microaggressions I experience in certain medical offices and clinics. So you'll see later on, there was this clinic that kept on malpracticing against me and also neglecting me. So there were several times where I had an appointment, the doctor canceled last minute, or they would say I didn't have insurance to pay for my medication, or they would send the medication to the wrong pharmacy, or they would put my medication under the wrong name. Just certain things where it was obvious that there was a neglect that was happening outside of the other malpractice. Now, to get to the malpractice, there were two separate incidences where two different phlebotomists basically malpracticed against me in terms of their phlebotomy thing. So one, I would go with the most recent one. The most recent one, basically, I felt a great deal of pain in my arm whenever she was supposed to be taking out blood. And whenever I look in it, first of all, the test tube doesn't have the cap on it. And if you're a phlebotomist, you know, but you're supposed to have the test tube has this little vacuum seal on it. It connects to another tube which has a needle, right? So the needle goes into your arm, it travels through that plastic tube, and then it has that cap which goes into the test tube. That way it doesn't come out. The lady, she just had the needle part stuck in my arm, but it wasn't actually attached to the test tube. But she was still letting my blood out. She was letting my blood run even though it wasn't collecting in the test tube. Now, this is important because I began with the second incident, but that phlebotomist was also involved with the first incident. So now let me go to the first incident. We were working backwards. The first incident, basically the same thing. I went to go get blood work. I don't like looking in my arm when I get needles done. I hate needles. I hate going to doctors or anything like that. So I was looking away, but I felt such a tremendous pain in my arm at this point that I had to look. And when I saw, I just see the needle dangling in my arm. It's just dangling there. So I get up, I go to the manager of Sun River Health, and I start complaining. Actually, it, the way it happened, I freaked out, so I left. But then I was like, no, I have to get this documented. I have to let the manager see this. So actually, I went back upstairs and I showed her what was going on, because my instinct was actually just to leave at that point. But I was like, I got to document this. I got to show them that this is something that happened. I can't be scared, and I can't just go home, be sad about it, and they don't actually see what happened, right? I had to actually go back up there and share them this. I don't want to make noise about these things, you see, but these are also very real positions that I have been placed in. So there is a whole phlebotomist sort of situation where even whenever I looked into my arm the second time around, and I have like pretty good veins, like you could even see like right here, like I have good like fucking veins. And my sister's a phlebotomist too, so I know some things about phlebotomy. She would just share her little flashcards or whatever. But the point is that there's basically no excuse for the phlebotomist to have acted that way, even in terms of like my veins and the way they pronounce themselves. There's no sort of and ifs or buts about whether or not I have a stickable vein. I do, alright? Now, so there, in Sun River Health, there was the whole malpractice thing, but then there was a whole neglecting, and I'm going to share screenshots, as well as pictures of not just the incidents, but also the emails and the messages I had to send to what they call quality at Sun River Health. And you're going to see the details of basically there was this time, and I'm going to give the specific example. I was supposed to meet with the Dr. Islam. He kept on canceling last minute and out of nowhere, to a point where I had to go ask for Miss McPherson. Again, McPherson last minute. So if I had an appointment at 4:30, I wouldn't get any kind of phone call. This is like televideo where they do the on the phone. And then I would call the clinic to make sure that I wasn't missing anything. And then they'll say, oh, she's just, running behind like 10 minutes. But you're definitely going to be on, So I would wait. Another 30 minutes had passed. I will call again. And they'll say, oh, no, well, she's like really busy. You just got to hold on for a little bit. And I will say, all right, but let me just wait. But I'm definitely going to call back again. So I would do that. And then they would say, oh, she's not even here anymore. Or they would say, oh, you're at 4:30. She already has a 4:30 appointment. You see what I'm saying? This is within professional deniability. In the same way that the housing department, the superintendent, and the landlady were abusing their power in an effort to illegally motion towards an eviction, an illegal eviction, in the same capacity, these so-called medical professionals were actually malpracticing and abusing their powers in order to neglect my case. Now, in the instance where both of the doctors were neglecting me, that had to do with blood work for HIV medication, HIV prevention medication specifically. So, if I could not get my hand on that medication, which it needs to be taken daily, that would have put me at a very compromising position in terms of my HIV status. So it's not something to play with at all. And they're very aware of the medications that I need, being my doctors, like obviously. So that could have had a bunch of consequences. Again, in terms of the healthcare, there has been a combination of neglect by the doctors who every time, and all of this is retaliatory because I have been putting in complaints, you see, and I'm also charging that this is in connection to the gang stalking and the gang violence. It just seeped over into the medical field. So to go from beginning to end, shortly after this whole gang violence and the gang stalking thing, the people at the clinic started treating me different, right? So the ladies at the front desk, they would just completely ignore me. like completely ignore me, that would lead me to make some kind of complaint, and then it would just escalate further. So by the time I get to the phlebotomist, they would say something like, "Oh, we heard you, right? We heard you making complaints about these other things," and then they're gonna show me something that lets me know they're affiliated with these gangs, right? And then one of the phlebotomists actually had the audacity to say, "Oh, well, I did that because I knew that you were a patient of Dr. McPherson," for example. Which I would say that's like a half of a truth. There was a retaliatory nature to it, but it wasn't because I was McPherson's patient. It was because I've been putting in these complaints. And they as a person have already made it known their type of affiliation, their gang affiliation specifically. They're not going to be direct about it. They're not that dumb, you see. But everything that I face has been actions outside of somebody's normal or expected professional boundaries or expectations, whether going into something more overtly into something abusive like malpractice, or something that is more passive aggressive, as in dropping appointments, dropping backup appointments, things like that, or even saying that I don't have insurance in order to get my medications. I'm telling you, there's whatever professional blockage that they could have machinated in order to prevent me from the proper healthcare I deserved and needed. They came up with it and they threw it at me, and I had to defend myself against it. So I really want to point that out first and foremost in the medical field. But on a similar note with the medical field, I want to point out when I went to St. Barnabas to get my stitches after being assaulted, and even when I went to St. Barnabas after I was assaulted, it was a zoo. It was an animal house. So I'm not a medical profession, but I did graduate from a very specialized high school called the High School of Medical Professions. A lot of my former classmates, even though we were in high school, have gone on to go get MDs, doctorate degrees from different fields. Our school graduated students into Harvard, Stanford, named the school, and we put in there. So very rigorous, medically centered program for very advanced special interest high school students. And one thing that we had to go over was even the legality of it, because by our senior year we had to go and do medical rotations, a 6 weeks internship, six weeks internships actually. So we actually had to be versed in things like OSHA and HIPAA, in terms of when we're in those hospitals, we're going to have to know certain medical legal things. That way we don't get into certain types of troubles or problems, you see. So that was a very real type of training that I went through. And whenever I'm going through all these malpractices things, yeah, I'm remembering it. But also I studied cell biology and genetics, human biology, and microbiology, as well as I already said cell biology and genetics in college. I was gonna be pre-med up until I decided poetry, and that was just a straight decision I made. But I'm letting you know I'm not stupid when it comes to the medical field. Also, I would edit PharmD dissertations whenever I was in LIU Brooklyn. When I was working for Long Island University in Brooklyn, I would have to edit dissertations of PhDs who were getting their PharmDs. So I'm letting you know the medical field is not anything new to me. I'm not new to it. Now, whenever I call St. Barnabas a zoo, I mean it. What you saw was essentially a blatant abuse of power. You had an entire floor of injured people who, it was like I stepped into Dante's Inferno, and none of the nurses, none of the CNAs, none of the doctors are helping the patients. Now, this is where I want you to understand, I have been in civil rights movements, alright? I've been in legal cases. I've been in protests, marches, demonstrations. I've created petitions. I've saved libraries. All right. I have a huge stock in the civil rights movements. So whenever I go into this hospital and I see that you got all of these white doctors, so everything in this hospital is racially hierarchized. You got the doctors at the top, then you got the little professional nurses and nurses assistants who are black, right? But it's obvious they're not doing their job. And then at the very bottom, you have all the black and brown people who are suffering and they're not getting any help. So you would have thought some power at the top would try to influence those in the middle to reach those at the bottom, but that's not it. The people at the top are so far removed. It reminds me of the Milgram experiment because they're so far removed from the patient, they don't give a fuck actually about the patient. And the nurses see that, and they likewise do that. Now, I tell you, I made a noise. I made a large noise and a large stink when I went to that ER at St. Barnabas. I was like, ain't no way. Ain't no way. If I'm here, you're not going to abuse your patients. All right? Even in that one instance, so first of all, somebody almost tried to deny giving me staples. Because first they tried to speak to me in Spanish. I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? And then they go, oh, no, you don't speak Spanish, so I'm not going to give you staples. I'm like, bitch, I'm in fucking America. Right? So that. But then there was a doctor who saw me, and he started pulling me away. He's like, oh, now we're going to take him to surgery. I was like, don't play with me like that. Don't fucking play with me like that because that's not what I'm here for. You're a doctor, so I do have higher expectations for you, and this is an emergency room. It's not a space for fucking jokes. My head just got lacerated by some asshole upstairs. I have to get staples in my fucking head, and now you want to joke around as if you're going to pull me away for surgery. You're saying that Annie has a group of like 5 to 7, I don't know if they were like doctoral students, little fucking interns, but he's making a joke about me, to me, pulling me away in front of his students. So then we see an acculturation of malpractice. He's telling them, you just fuck around with these patients. We don't really give a fuck with them. Nobody here is going to do anything. You're not going to get punished. You're not going to get punished. And even if they die, who cares? That's what that lead doctor was telling all those little asshole interns, right? I'm telling you, St. Barnabas is gross. It's a fucking toilet. And on that note, a lot, if not all, of Bronx hospital and clinics are also fucking toilets. Alright, people from the outside can see the Bronx and see just how trashy it is. Do not ever find yourself in a Bronx fucking hospital. Alright, even if you got a fucking, if you're bleeding out your fucking liver in the Bronx, you're better off walking to a hospital, to Presbyterian out in Washington Heights, than coming over here. Alright, it's a bunch of it's really just this community, this mobster community that upholds itself. So even when we're talking about a nurse, we're not really talking about a professional nurse who's been vetted through certain professional processes. We're talking about somebody in the neighborhood who was let slip by through nursing school, that way she could occupy that position. That's the big problem with the Bronx. They don't actually hire professionals or train professionals. They choose who they want in the position and they give them that position. It's not earned. It's not actually vetted, right? So, again, I experienced a crazy malpractice here in the Bronx that was gang affiliated in multiple ways. Now I want to get on to the next thing, which was the street microaggressions. Alright, I mentioned this last time. I have had ladies with their strollers and babies in the strollers try to hit me with their fucking stroller with their baby in it. What does that tell you? The mothers here don't give a fuck about me being mothers. The mothers here don't give a fuck about the well-being of their own kid, and they don't care about their own status as a mother. Alright, so there has to be a distinction made. The Bronx's sociology is not the same as America's sociology. The Bronx's sociology is fucking criminal. It's not just criminal, but it's like so twisted. It's sad. It's demented. It's infuriating. I mean, what solution is there really whenever you have had for 50 plus years a generation of criminal and violent gang members who are also mentally arrested in a third grade capacity? Recognize this has been going on generationally, right? It's fucking frightening that there is a section in America that has been so excluded from the real world that it has created its own culture of criminality, that its very infrastructures are disintangible from the criminal mob structure itself. The moms here are not mothers. They're not. Alright? When you look at the men and how they operate, they are selective about their women. So they're going to choose a woman who will be subservient to them, who's not going to question them, who in their eyes is not going to be able to catch up with their things. You see, because they just need a wife as a representative. Because in this society, especially in black and brown culture, if you're a man, you have to be masculine, you have to have a wife, you have to have the kid, you have to have that front, right? So a man here in the Bronx is going to choose a woman who can be that front piece, who is going to take care of his kids technically, but who is also going to let him walk around and do what he wants, aka sleep with gay DL men. That's what you have to realize. All the men here are just gay and DL. Right? So a wife to them is not really a wife to love. They give more love to their DL men's. They're more loyal to their DL men's. When it comes to the wife and the family, that's just something they need publicly. That's just what they need in order to present themselves. That way they don't get questions of, why aren't you married? Why don't you have kids? And they're willing to make that sacrifice to have a double life. Right? So they're going to be selective about who is this woman. Not only that, but that woman is in control. And I'm telling you, women with children in the carriages have tried to hit me. And it's coming, it goes back to the man who is affiliated with these mobs. Right? So this woman is basically enacting in an aggressive manner on behalf of this mob violence, this extended mob violence. So for me, I think that really comes into question, shouldn't CPS be brought into this? Because essentially children are being used as a tool for this gang stalking and this gang violence. And the mothers are no less guilty. That is no less violent to the children. And the women, the mothers, the supposed mothers, are no less guilty of child abuse either. Right? And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Because I'm telling you, I'm dealing with gang violence and gang mobs and gang stalking. They have no morals. And you might think it's people around my age, but no, they'll not only send their wives, they will send their children. They'll send their teenagers. They'll send their old folks. I'm telling you, they have sent everybody to me. And you might be like, wow, that's really sad. Yeah, that's really sad and pathetic that you got old folks who aren't evolved enough to not pay attention to these mobsters. It's really fucking sad that you got these teenagers without a father, except whenever he's going to come around to say, hey, go pick on that other guy. Right? The Bronx is really sad and it's really fucking pathetic. It's really sad that you got these supposed muscular, manly, hyper-masculine men, but in reality, they're just cowardice mobsters who want nothing more than just to fuck their mans behind their woman's back. That's really what it is. Alright? So I got a lot of microaggressions on the street too. Now, when you're in that moment, it's hard to take footage. It just is. You're just walking down the street and then some bitch tries to hit you with her baby in a baby carriage. But what I do have footage of, another microaggression that I experienced was in the gyms. I would go to the gyms no matter what, and somebody would come up to me. Somebody would try to take the equipment I was sitting on. Alright? And you think I'm just going to go get up and be like, no? Because that's the expectation. They see me as very gay. Every time this guy upstairs attacked, assaulted, hit me, he would call me faggot. Faggot, faggot, faggot. Right? And, hello. Right? So I don't hide my identity. I don't hide who I am. So when I would go to these gyms, their expectation is that they would come up to me while I was in the middle of a workout. They would say, move, I want to work. And the expectation partly might have been, he's just gay. Right? It was definitely connected to this gang violence and this gang stalking. So they wanted to exert some sort of power over me. Now get this. When I would go complain, I would get in trouble. The supervisor and the manager over there at that Blink Fitness, he blamed me. And it got to a point because it got physically threatening to a point where I did call the cops. And the cops came, 2 cops came. One cop talked to me, the other cop talked to the manager. Then they both talked to the manager. Then they came to me, but the other officer didn't ask me about me. They said, oh, we talked to the manager and we know that you're at fault and you have to go. And I'm like, I got the video here. You could see, and I'm going to upload it here in this YouTube video. You'll see the guy coming up to me and arguing with me at the Blink Fitness. Now, once the police came, the manager lied to him and said whatever he had to say. And next thing, I'm being kicked out. So again, all of these microaggressions where it's a setup. These people are basically trying to set me up as best that they can to put me in a spot or position that they can. That way they could say, see, he's like that. It's obvious to me that they're trying to set me up with something before they actually lock up this guy upstairs. And this place is so skewed and fucked up, it's going to want to incriminate me under false conditions and bullshit like that before they actually try to lock up this guy for the actual violence he has created because they're protecting him because he's a part of the mob that they're part of. You see what I'm saying? So, again, I'm going to upload these things. I really needed to say and share those 2 things. The malpractice in the medical field as an extension of the gang retaliation. But I also needed to talk about the street violence. The violence I get whenever I go to the stores, to the gyms. It's always somebody fucking with me in a certain ways. There was a Jamaican lady who kept stalking me. The same Jamaican lady in the same way, the same type of outfit, wearing the same like mask. Whether I was at the grocery store, walking down the street, in my own building. I'm telling you, the people here are fucking psychopathic and they have no fucking... I mean, no, they do have a clue about it. They know about it, but they're so psychopathic, they're not gonna visibilize that part of it. I mean, I don't know. Fordham, this is a neighborhood where they killed Junior Guzman out of fucking mistaken identity. This is the same neighborhood where in the summer a grown man was found either shot or killed, but definitely dead on the 183rd D train. This is the same one where those kids up the street got into fentanyl, right? This is the same neighborhood where down over there, a kid earlier this summer fell out of a fucking window and onto the ground. This is the same neighborhood where not just a couple weeks ago, a baby was found in the trash. You see what I'm saying? The types of crimes that happen here are nothing less than fucking high level psychopathic. And a lot of people in the videos have been, why don't you move? Why don't you move? Why don't you move? To me, that just sounds like more Bronx dumb shit. Don't think you can get on my channel, try to bully me on some anonymous comment, right? Because there has also been cyberbullying. We covered that in the first fucking video. Gang stalking, you saw all those text messages, we're going to take you out of your apartment, cut up your face, you Chinese bitch, right? We're going to shoot you. We saw the videos, the text that were sent to me already. So all the other bullshit it's already been filed. Right? So I just really was prompted to do a video like this to really point out besides the overt violence and the stalking and the harassment, I've also been recipient of these microaggressions in shared public spaces, but also whenever I would go to the medical clinic, you know. And so this has been an overall war against me ever since I was assaulted, and I saw that the police were not doing anything, and I went to complain to higher offices. I've only received these nuanced and overt forms of microaggressions, right? So it needed to be pointed out because, again, it's clear to me that they're really trying to position and frame me in such a way that it looks like I'm doing something out of violence when it's really just self-defense. And whenever your skull has been lacerated by brass knuckles and you see the local cops and FBI fail you, and you're still getting stalked and everything, you're going to do what you need to do to defend yourself, right? So I have no regrets about it. I have no remorse about it. I have no regrets or remorse about these videos either, even though, yeah, I feel kind of guilty about it because it's still some sort of problem. It's still some sort of friction, and I want to live in peace 100%. But I also don't feel like that peace can happen unless I got this out. So, just another video. These are the things that I, on a more nuanced level, that I had been experiencing because of these things, right? So, before I log off or whatever, I just take a little minute just to see if I am maybe like forgetting something. I just don't want to have to make another video, to be honest. But I think that kind of like wraps it up, basically. Yeah, that's what's happening. That's what's going on, and I don't know. Hopefully the men and the women can shape up because it's gross. It's just really fucking gross and disgusting. And I am gonna bring spirituality into this. Whenever God appoints you as a parent and you fail in that way, God has made a promise to at least protect His children. Like, and that's without any assault that has been done to me. I really try to think of the tabulations that this guy has probably made with the Almighty, not just creating the assault and all of that, but the way he's abusive to his wife, the way he's created an abusive, hostile environment in that apartment for even his child, the way he's misleading his child, the way he, as a source, is essentially instructing all of these other people to act in some sort of way. I do believe God sees it. Now, on that note, if this was a RICO case, he would be on top of the RICO case. The next three would be the superintendent, the landlady. Below them would be the housing department, the fire department, the EMS, even the medical staffs, all the paraprofessionals who harass me. Then after that would be street people, the mothers, even their children, because they have their children come after me, their teenage kids, or they'll have their children stalk me. And it sounds weird, but they do that. Or they're other just regular street soldiers. So in a RICO case, there's a design, there's a structure to it, and in this one, I'm saying there's a criminal at the top. Then you have the police and the FBI, because they are protective of him too, along with the superintendent and the landlady, and below them are going to be the EMS, the FDNY, the other police, and the director of buildings who harassed me with those illegal raids, the de facto raids that they gave me. And then below them would be their street soldiers, which unfortunately would include their wives and the children of the wives of their children themselves, any other elderly, basically any of their family members, because gangs are so just gang affiliated, they're going to throw out whatever they can at you. And so if this were a RICO case, which I believe it is, that would be the structure of it. That would be how this thing is actually operating. And I think that's actually a really good way to end this. The structure of the RICO case, should this go to the courts, which I'm hoping, and should this be identified as a RICO type situation. But I've been speaking too long. I just want to say thank you for your time and everything so far, and I hope that you have a good rest of your day. Thank you.